Well, GOP Congressman George Santos is rejecting calls from fellow Republicans to resign. Santos has admitted to lying about his life story during his campaign, and he faces multiple ethics complaints. Today, we have new information about the New York GOP congressman. Caitlin Huey Burns is joining us now here in Studio 57, not from D.C. Good morning to talk a little bit more about this. Good morning, Caitlin.
Good morning. It's so great to see you. And this is a story that is evolving by the minute, it seems. And one of these newest developments is that you have all these Republicans here in New York calling on him to resign. But back in Washington, Capitol Hill leaders in the party are saying that it's really up to the voters to decide.
He's a national joke. He's an international joke. But this joke's got to go.
Republican leaders in the New York county that embattled Congressman George Santos represents are urging him to resign.
George Santos, to me, is a bunch of lies.
Joe Cairo chairs the Nassau County GOP and helped to vet Santos.
He made statements. We believed him. We trusted him. It was all a falsehood.
But so far, Santos says he's not going anywhere.
Will you step down?
I will not.
The floodgates are now open. On Wednesday, 4 Republican congressmen from New York called for Santos to resign, including Representative Anthony D'Esposito.
I wanted to make it very clear that that is not our brand. That's not what we stand for.
Santos has already admitted he lied about his education, work history, and claims his grandparents fled the Holocaust. But he still refuses to answer how he financed his campaign. A CBS News review revealed contributions of more than $10,000 from a controversial Chinese donor and more than $18,000 from the cousin of a sanctioned Russian oligarch.
You know, in America today, you're innocent until proven guilty.
The GOP has a razor-thin majority in the House, and despite calls from some fellow Republicans to oust Santos, Speaker Kevin McCarthy said he still has plans to seat him on a congressional committee.
It's the voters who made that decision. He has to answer to the voters, and the voters can make another decision.
But Cairo says Santos no longer has a political future.
Yeah, we're done with him. I feel sorry and sad for him that he has lived, certainly for the past few years, this life of lies. Totally untrue, and it's very sad and perhaps pathetic, but the people deserve more.
So we obtained Santos's resume that he gave to Cairo, who you just saw in that interview.
Yeah.
And
is it an updated resume?
No, this is the resume that he handed party leaders while he was running. And, you know, it's repeating a lot of these lies. And one of the interesting things that Cairo, who you just saw in that package, told us is that Santos claimed to have been a star volleyball player at Brooke College. And we, of course, know he never went there.
Oh, my God. Like every day there's something new. It's outrageous. Yeah. So Kevin McCarthy, who is now Speaker, Santos said he would support him to be Speaker. He says, listen, he's probably not going to serve on any, major committees, but he could be on a committee. I want to play some sound from some of his fellow lawmakers and what they said about him.
When you have your local party saying something so vocally, that's not a helpful sign.
He's been elected by his folks, and he'll have to deal with his issues with the Ethics Committee.
I've been clear in public in that, I think there's some legitimate concerns being raised about how he conducted himself during the campaign.
So this situation is fascinating to me. It's quite a conundrum for the Republicans because they have a very slim majority, right, in the House. While there are New York Republicans that are outraged by this new information about him, I don't know if we're hearing so much outrage from the actual people who voted for him. I don't know. And they are the ones that made the decision to put him there.
Well, and that's what Santos said in his statement, is that he doesn't respond to these party leaders back at home. He responds to the voters. We spent some time in his district yesterday, and Republicans who have voted for him, they do feel duped, and they feel more so like this has caused a spectacle at a time that they just want their lawmakers to focus on things they campaigned on, like inflation, the economy, crime. So it's more so that this has become such a big deal. I mean, news crews are everywhere trying to talk to everyone that they can. But you bring up a really good point, because there's such a political dynamic here to consider. In New York, you have Republicans, wanting to distance themselves from this guy, and it benefits them politically because, they have a message that they want to put out. This is not what we're about. New York, of course, has been plagued with scandaled politicians.
Right.
But in Washington, it's a very different dynamic for McCarthy, because Santos actually flipped a Democratic seat in 2022. and essentially helped McCarthy win that majority. So in New York, the rules are if someone resigns, they have to have a special election. And this is a really competitive seat, and a Democrat, could stand a chance of winning. And so going that route really puts Republicans in a situation that they could lose this seat and make their majority even slimmer.
When you spoke to voters in his area, did they talk about possibly having him removed, or was it that they just wanted to get down to business?
Well, it's such an open question right now, because you have this kind of new dynamic where before Republicans in New York were kind of silent on this. They were waiting to see how this plays out. So that's something I'm curious about, is whether and how these Republicans coming out yesterday from New York make any difference on the voter. So that's something to kind of watch out, whether that public pressure builds from his voter base. But there's still this question of how effective he can be. If he's not serving on top committees, how effective can you be if every day you're at the Capitol being chased by reporters asking about your bio? How can you focus on anything else?
So for people who might not be up to speed, can we talk a little bit about the various investigations that are going on, including possible ties to a Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, so this was something that he has acknowledged. A company that he worked for was later involved in a Ponzi scheme. But again, there are so many questions here. There is this question of what legal exposure he would have, because you can't really be indicted for
lying on your resume,
right?
Which is one of his arguments.
Exactly. And you've had some of his defenders say, look, politicians lie, which, again, not a great defense.
I know.
But in the terms of the legal exposure, there are these questions about how he financed his campaign. Remember, on his campaign finance reports, he was claiming to make over $700,000 from this organization. So there are lots of questions, too, about where he got some of his money, ties to some frankly sketchy people. So that is going to be kind of the central question here. And that's something that we just don't know the answers to. But to your point, there's federal and local investigations. And also, lawmakers want him to face the ethics committee. So we'll see how that goes.
Caitlin, I know you're going to be keeping on it. Thank you very much.
See you.